first of all, thank you to Stacy and Lee for joining us today to talk about pre-K-12 education for the Future Ready Story County Virtual Career Fair. So I'm going to turn it over to them, let them introduce themselves to you and kind of talk about their experience in education, and we'll go from there. Stacy, you want to go ahead? Oh, we've got you muted. Just a sec. There we go.
There you go. Okay. That's the phrase of the year. You're muted.
Yes.
So my name is Stacy Dobernecker, and I teach French at Ames High School. This is my 29th year of teaching, which really amazes me. I started my career, I taught 10 years in Ankeny. I taught middle school, 7th grade French, and then I taught 8th grade French and Spanish. And then I moved to Ames schools, where I started out teaching French 1 and Spanish 1. And I don't know how long, but for probably at least 12 years now, 12 or 13, I've been teaching all French. My assignment this year is French 1, 2, and 4. So any more you would like from me right now, or?
No, I think that's good. Well,
okay.
Yeah.
So my name is Lee Chen Stewart, and I am a school counselor by trade. I started as a teacher, so I got my BA in elementary education and psychology here in Iowa. And then at that time, there was a surplus of teachers, so I couldn't find a job. I was said it was a good idea to go to graduate school, so I ended up at Michigan State. And did school counseling because it was still in the school, because that was what I knew I wanted to do, was to be some sort of, a teacher. So did 2 years at Michigan State, and then got recruited to Reno, Nevada, not Nevada, but Nevada, because they had a boom out there of teachers. And so I started out there as a 5th grade teacher for 3 years. And then I went to Upper Bound, which is a program for low-income first-generation students to access post-secondary education. Did that for a while, and then I found my job in school counseling. And so I was at a 7 through 12 school. So it was 7th grade through 12th grade, which was nice to have them for 5 years as a school counselor. So that was my secondary experience. Then I got overaged, and they split the middle school and the high school. And I decided to go to elementary, which was my first love. So I went back to elementary and was a counselor for PK, which is pre-kindergarten through 6th grade, and stayed there until I moved out here back to Iowa. And I did substitute teaching and substitute school counseling, and then found this wonderful job with a grant that is Story County College Access Network. So it's still working with schools, students with college access. And so that's where I'm at right now. So all those skills transfer to this job as well too.
So it looks like we have a couple of questions already that have come in. So the first one is, what are some ways to know if teaching is right for you?
Okay, so I'm sorry, Lee.
No worries.
Okay, thank you. So I used to call myself a backdoor teacher because I went to college and I got a 4-year degree. And then I was offered, I worked a couple of years, and then I was offered the opportunity to teach English in France. So I could go back to France, which I love, love, love. And I didn't need to have a teaching certificate because I was like a conversation type teacher there. So it was an assistant type position. And as I was doing that, okay, thanks guys, merci. My class was sitting here, they were so sweet. Thanks you guys for watching. I realized I really enjoyed being with the students. And I love French, and so those two things really came together for me. So I was asked a couple years ago, I was in France, and I was in a middle school, and this little boy said, he was like 10 or something, and he said, "Madame, are you living the American dream?" And I thought, oh my gosh, that's a really big question, you know? And so I said, you know, family aside, let's talk about my career. And I said, I absolutely am living my American dream because I talk about what I love with people that I love to be with, and they pay me. So that's cool. You know, that's cool for me.
So I think education was what I wanted because when I came here to the United States, my background is as a refugee. I did not speak a lick of English. And so what happened was I had some amazing teachers who were ESL teachers, first grade teachers, kindergarten teachers, all those individuals that were there to help me not only gain that language, but also just catch up and be ahead. And so, so to be a 9-year-old in first grade and have all these amazing teachers help you, that kind of what drove me to say, you know what, there are people that can really make a difference. And it could be just one kid, which was me at that time, or as many kids as possible. So that's kind of what landed me in education.
Wow, that's amazing. So are there any practical ways outside of the classroom that a student could utilize to practice teaching?
Oh, certainly. I mean, you know, like I was a dancer. I did dancing in school. And so, you know, I've taught like little neighborhood kids, you know, dancing or Sunday school teaching, you know, or, you know, YouTube and things like that provides a really good opportunity to really, how can you be succinct in what you're teaching? You're going to have a recipe that you want to give. You need to get on camera. You need to have the plan on how it goes through. You know, that's a good question we got.
I think, you know, just babysitting. Are you pretty patient with that, you know, 2-month-old or 2-year-old that just screaming their head off? What do you still have like that composure of like wanting to still help them and teach them some things? Do you play, and during your play, do you kind of just talk and walk through things? So a lot of it, I don't know if, you know, Stacy would agree, but it's a lot of it is kind of like natural. It comes natural to you. You want to interact with people. You want to really kind of help them understand what's happening if they don't understand. So that's kind of where my counseling and teaching kind of come together, is just that part. And then also summer jobs where you're working, you know, as a swim instructor, or even just anything that you're just helping someone learn something new or different, that kind of always helps.
And I think also people, oftentimes we're the top of the class. When in high school, a math teacher was probably the top of his or her class in math. I was a really good French student. And so I have been encouraged, and I really appreciated this advice, to do something that I'm not as comfortable with so that I can put myself in the shoes of the students. So I have foreign language colleagues who will learn a different language in the summer. And I've always made it a point to learn something new, to be a newbie at something, so that I can relate to my students in that way.
Those are all really great ideas. Thank you. Oh, we've got another one. Do you have to get separate degrees to teach different levels of school? And if so, do you recommend going for earlier, younger education or older students first?
I think the beauty of being in education is that you can start with a bachelor's, like in elementary education. So that was kind of my area. But you can always keep going, whether you do certifications or you do graduate degrees. I'm kind of over degreed for the things that I do, but that's part of wanting to be a teacher, and is that you love that learning. And so having just a bachelor's to get you going as a as an elementary or even a secondary person, because then you would have to major in something, and Stacy can talk about that. But as an elementary person, I was taught to teach all its subjects. And then from there, that's where you go. And as a school counselor, most school counseling program will train you in both K and 12. So your elementary and secondary. And then from there, you do pick what you want to do, sort of like teaching. But sometimes here, like in Iowa, for some reason, you do have to pick elementary or secondary, which I think is not favorable, because I think me having that experience of being a K-12 person, I taught the 7th graders, so I knew what to expect of what, to come forward for the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, to kind of tell them about it. As well as seniors and those freshmen, and what to look forward to. So that full circle kind of helps. And so you can always get more credentials, you can always get more certifications. So you don't have to get different degrees, but you can. For me, counseling gave me the best of both. And that is, I am mostly one-on-one teaching or small groups, whereas teachers have a heavy load sometimes of 30 to 150 kids all day long. And so that just kind of does that. And so mine just stops at a master's degree. And then if I want to, even with a master's, you can teach at the college level. So if you want to teach older students, and then if you get a PhD, you can teach college students, whether you teach them about teaching or you teach them about counseling, whatever area you go into. So you specialize, and you might have to get a different specialized degree.
Right. So as I said, I got my undergraduate degree, and I had no teaching. I had nothing. It was a long time ago, back in the 80s, and I was not encouraged to teach, which is something I ponder a lot as to why. But at any rate, then I went back and got my teaching license, which took about 1.5 years. The beauty in that for me is that I was really good at French. I had a year in Paris that I studied. Then I went back for that year and I taught in a French high school, so I spoke more French. So I felt really, really confident in my subject area. And then I could add the education classes onto that. It just depends. I know my colleagues in the science, there are so many different areas. There's physics, there's physical science, there's chemistry, there's the biology. Sometimes the health is in there. And so you really have to counsel and get advisement from the School of Education at the college that you choose. And all these questions that you, ladies and gentlemen, I think it was all ladies, I'm not sure, are asking are so good when you go to investigate which college do you want to go to, because they will have different programs. And things are changing. I know that I had a lady observing my class earlier this fall as she is working to get her teaching certificate. And it's some new program where it's more of a rapid acquisition of the teaching certificate. There are programs you can go through for your teaching that automatically get you a master's. So all those things are good questions as you investigate.
Absolutely. So kind of piggybacking off of that, I know that different teaching jobs require different endorsements, especially at, the elementary level, where it is, like Lee alluded to, is more of a general program where you learn how to teach all of the subjects. And then in high school, you are going to focus, if you want to teach high school, you're going to focus more on, you have a science degree with your teaching license, for example. So to make yourself competitive for a school district to hire you, are there any specific endorsements that you would recommend students look into if they go into a teaching program?
I guess I would say right away, the reading is always a great endorsement to get for the lower levels. Special ed and English language learners, ESL, English as a second language. Those just automatically come to mind. Foreign language in Iowa especially, is often a good one to combine with something else, because sometimes there's not a full-time position available with the Spanish, French, or German, or other languages, and sometimes you can work with that.
With counseling, you can do it through a master's degree. So you do have to have a master's degree to be a school counselor. So you can specialize in counseling or school counseling. So different schools have different degrees. So mine became counseling. So I could have gone and do another endorsement and be a private counselor. So those are the kind of different conversations you have with your advisors or different folks. And I think I went that route because in the back of my mind, I also wanted to be a child psychiatrist. Didn't know what that meant, but it meant that it went the counseling route. So that was part of that whole just getting a counseling versus a school counseling degree. And that allowed me to be K-12, where I think here in Iowa, it's specifically school counseling, and you do internships and things like that in that specific area. As far as endorsement, if you have an opportunity, especially in your BA area, just focus on the area you're going into. A lot of time for secondary, I know I've had friends who are teaching major, but they also had a minor in biology or a minor in a certain area. So that becomes kind of your endorsement. STEM is a huge area that there's a lot of endorsement for. And a lot of times you can get those once you have a teaching job, and they're either 6 months, a summer, or anything like that, that you can do online and self-pacing. With school counseling, having a teaching endorsement really helps for you to get a job, because it really tells the school that you also can teach and relate to the teachers and what's happening, rather than just a straight counselor, and vice versa. And then also there's other endorsement that are national that really kind of helps you look a little better, but it also pays a little bit more on your pay scale. So for me, I'm a nationally board certified school counselor. And so that is a test that I had to take, and some things, but it just kind of allows me to go from state to state a little bit easier, understanding that my credentials and what I know is nationally based rather than just locally based. So
interesting.
That's an interesting thing about education, is that we are state endorsed, but then each school district might have different kind of requirements. I know that there's a district for foreign language in Iowa where they are looking for people with master's degrees in French or Spanish in their instance. I have my master's degree in education. So sometimes, those things can work differently. And then going from state to state, if you're a person who wants to explore and to go out for a while, we hope you'll come back to Iowa. You need to check with those states to see what things they might require in order for your certificate to transfer.
Great. Lots more questions coming in. This is great. Thanks for being so engaged, students. What types of teachers are needed in Iowa today? Is there a particular
science is a big one. Science and math is always big because of the STEM, especially with Iowa State here locally and all. That's what those are the two. And then I think Stacy mentioned ESL. That's a huge growing population here as well for that. So those are the ones that I know of right now.
And then, oh shoot, what was the tip of my tongue? Oh, I think business as well. I know I live in Nevada, in a smaller town, and we've got a big program there, and we do at Ames as well. But the CTE, what's CTE stand for? Do you remember, Lee? I never know.
Career Technical Education.
Yep.
Technical education. So there's a little bit of a resurgence in that. We also have some mentoring or internship mentoring type programs that kids can go into. So that career field, I think as well. We had agriculture added to to Ames this year. So those are really, really good questions where sometimes you do have to do your own research. You know, you kind of, because you can find the online, you know, how many schools have French, how many schools have Spanish, how many schools have a technical business education program, and what does that entail? So, but I think what Lee mentioned for sure.
Yeah.
And reading.
Yep.
Yeah.
What is something that surprised you about teaching?
Okay, I'm gonna tell this silly story. Well, I think it's silly, but so a long time ago, you know, I step into my first faculty meeting, right? We're all in the room and it's all the different teachers. And there was a teacher who was late. There was a teacher who was talking. There was a teacher who was reading. There was one who was sleeping. There was one who was chatting with his or her neighbor. There was one who was asking really kind of almost nasty questions, you know. There was, you know, somebody, yes. It's like the whole school was in there, right? It was like, I call it the playground, right? So you really want to think about, and this is true in of course in any profession, but you're working with the students, but you're also working with these adults, right? And so I don't know, I thought everybody would be just like all prim and proper and, you know, wanting to sit in the first row, and their teachers who they're not going to sit in the first row, they're going to sit in the back row, you know? So that back then when I was young, that surprised me a lot.
Interesting.
What do they say? Teachers are the worst, their own worst students. So I think the surprising part is that that you can make a difference, but at the same time, you know, there's good and bad in all careers, right? Mm-hmm. There are teachers who can make a difference that's not so great. And that's when it becomes disheartening, when your colleague and, you know, are not there for maybe the same reason and things like that. So that's that's the part. So that's in any career. There are people who are really passionate about it and things like that. And then the other one is that most educators, whether it's a student counselor, principal, or all that stuff, are introverts. And for some reason, these introverts like to be in front of a group of people. So that's interesting. So if you think like, oh, I'm an introvert, I'm really shy, some reason when you are in front of kids or whatever you're really interested in, you just change into a whole nother person. And that was interesting to me because I'm somewhat of an introvert, but when I'm in front of kids, it takes on a whole different persona.
Interesting.
That is, yeah. So the next question is DMACC a good place to start, or would a different college be better? And before we dive in, I do know that DMACC does offer their teacher, teacher education program?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I know that they have that built in. And so what are your thoughts on that?
So my son's friend, young man, went to the teacher academy while he was at Nevada High School, and then got the, went to UNI, and he finished a semester early. He finished his teaching, elementary teaching, endorsement, all that stuff. I don't know what other endorsements he has, but he has his teaching certificate. And therefore, that second semester, when his colleagues were still in school, he was able to substitute teach. And substitute teaching is always a good thing to do if you can before you start, just to get your feet wet a little bit more. So that was really good for him, financially advantageous as well. And I guess that's all I know about it.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, I wish I had that, or some of my colleagues had that, because I had friends who went through the teaching program and at the end they're like, oh, I can't do this. This classroom management thing is too hard, or the kids are eating me alive. And they didn't understand that until their junior or senior year. And you spent a lot of money. So if you have any chance in your, in your schedule in your junior and senior year to do a CTE, which is a career technical ed at DMACC or ISU and things like that, go ahead and do it. Check out and see if that teaching is really for you. You get credits already. But then you are more secure of like, okay, I really like this topic. I really do like working with kids, and kind of go from there. Because for some folks our age and those who haven't had that experience, it can be costly in the sense of moving ahead and not and getting to that teaching part, and you're just not, this is not for me. So take advantage of those CTE classes to learn a little more.
All right. What classes do you recommend taking to get your teaching degree? And I know that there are built-in programs at most universities where you'll start at, your intro to teaching methods and kind of work your way up through the curriculum and instruction side of things. And so there's that, but I guess, so maybe in addition to your teaching classes, are there any other classes that you would take?
Tech. Get all those things. I'm just climbing this year, trying to figure out the video and this and that. So, and I know that you all have grown up, with the computers and the screens and everything like that. So, boy, Lee, do you have any better answer than me?
I think whatever you might be interested, because usually within your degree program, there's 1 or 2 classes where you can go out of your discipline and learn something different. And that might be that opportunity to take a little more sociology or psychology, so you have a better understanding how students and interaction work or things like that. For me, with the counseling part, I was able to focus on topics that really interested, which was really like family and students dynamics. So you have very preset courses, like Ali said, but with the school counseling, everything's preset, but you always have that opportunity of taking 1 or 2 courses that is out of your discipline to better understand a little bit more of what you're going to be teaching, or just something that intrigues you to help you along that path.
I actually took Spanish as well in college, but I wasn't endorsed. So I did that later. I didn't have enough. And then I did that later and was able to add. So, and you can do that, like you said, with, your biology on the side or whatever other thing interests you.
Are there any subjects that in central Iowa, especially, that aren't in high demand, that we don't really need any teachers in right now?
Well, the crazy part right now, there is a huge shortage of teachers, substitute teachers and regular teachers. And that's because because of the pandemic, there's early retirement. And then just people are not going to the teaching field. And I don't know if most of you, this is not a job that's going to make you rich. It'll set you off really well in a sense of having a really stable income and job, and maybe summers off, but at the same time, people don't go into it because it's not a money maker, and it's a passion more than that, and then money maker. But I think everything is good right now for any subjects. I know that I just worked with someone who just finished their music degree at UNI and got a job right away. So there are people that are leaving the profession just because the profession is aging as well, and those folks are leaving. So we need more young folks to be in the profession, whether it's school counseling, teaching, or anything like that. So.
And if I could talk just a little bit about the money and everything, and I think that was, I believe, what I was told way back in the day. You won't make any money teaching, but as Lee said, it's been a very stable thing for our family. To raise our children. It's been excellent. There's a lot of, schools on the bell, but we get out a lot earlier than most other jobs, and there's some flexibility there. I've worked for excellent administrators who aren't going to, let you not follow, what you're supposed to do, but are very understanding and really work with you. And I know a lot of couples who are teachers, and it's been to have the summers you know, or even part of the summer where your whole family, I'm always jealous, where their whole family is off doing something together. You know, my husband's not a teacher, and so we don't have the same kind of situation like that. So for me, it's been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we've got time for one more question. So if you have, or what advice do you have to students who are looking at going into the education field?
Thank you. You know, I get really sad when I hear of teachers, quite frankly, who tell their children not to be teachers. That makes me really, really sad. It is tough. Some of the things, it's really, really tough. But really, really consider why is it tough? I don't know. I just right now things are hard, but boy, I still got kids in here who want to learn. I've got opportunities to share what I loved, you know, what I love. I see them learning and progressing. You know, it's been a hard time, and I feel really good that I can play a part in this difficult situation that we're all finding ourselves in with the pandemic. So I try to look at those things. You know, you should see the number of things I have to correct tonight, but it'll get done.
It's hard work, but it's rewarding work. You have to understand that, you know, I mean, like, unlike other jobs, maybe you don't see the rewards or the end product until many, many years later. So we're talking about 10 minimum, 15 normal, 20, right? When they come back and they write you a letter or something like that. So it's rewarding in that sense that you are working with humans to help mold them towards their own potential. And that's what you got to remember. It's their potential and not yours. And so there's not a lot of careers that allow you to do that, to really interact with other humans, to help them move them forward to where they want to go. And you could be that person to support that. And we need new blood in the teaching you know, profession right now. And sometimes the best teachers are those who are also had struggled learning themselves. And so they become the best teachers because they remember how hard it was for them, or how rewarding it is. So it can go both ways. So don't ever let somebody tell you, well, you struggle with school, so you won't be a good. Those are sometimes the best teachers because they remember the struggle and then how to teach differently for their kids. And creative people are the best teachers that I've seen because they just go all out, and you wonder where they pulled it from, because they're still teaching what needs to be taught, but it is in an amazing way that reaches students and things like that. So definitely go for it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you. That's a lot to unpack. Thank you so much for helping us better understand education and opportunities available and how to get involved. I know I speak for many, many people when I say I had teachers who definitely made a lasting impact on my life. And I think that we've got some students on today that will be doing that in the very near future for the next generation. So thank you both so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and have a wonderful day.
All right. Thank you all. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.